who's our new Deputy Secretary and General Counsel. Shannon has been over at Department of Human Services since the beginning. I had the good fortune of working with Shannon in the Attorney General's office, and she ran our Civil Rights Division. She does an outstanding job, and she has an incredible dedication to public service. Shannon, I'm very grateful for your leadership and the work you did in the AG's office, in transition, and what you're doing right now. So thank you very much for that. Last week, I had a chance to attend a listening session held by the Department of Human Services in Martinsburg about the child welfare system in West Virginia. And the overall listening tour, we had 8 meetings across the state that was organized by our terrific Human Services Secretary, Alex Mayer, who unfortunately can't be here today, but he's busy doing great things for the state. And they've been working to identify areas of improvement for the state. We launched this listening tour because we know the most valuable input that we can have is from folks on the ground. Parents, guardians, grandparents, judges, lawyers, social workers, and more gathered at these 8 stops around the state to provide feedback based upon their lived and shared experiences. When I attended the session in Martinsburg, I heard some of the attendees talk about a broken system, that they were disjointed, siloed, frustrated, a lot of words that we don't want to stand for any program in the state, let alone something that affects so many of our kids. Quite frankly, it's tough to sit and listen to all those negative experiences about what many of the folks went through. And I know that I share some of that from when I worked down the hall as the Attorney General, where we didn't have some of the tools that we needed to ultimately bring the kind of change to the system that's required. That's changing now. We know that it was difficult to hear many of the issues that could have been avoided had the state communicated differently, had the state eliminated some red tape, or had the right tools to better equip our CPS workers. I think you all know that these issues have been going on for a very, very long time, and unfortunately, it's the kids that suffer, and we can't tolerate that. West Virginia cannot, let me repeat, West Virginia cannot keep kicking the can down the road as was done in the past. That's not the model of this administration. Under my administration, we're making urgently needed changes to take the first steps to address issues within the child welfare system. When I first took office, I received a letter from a local news outlet about one of their Freedom of Information Act requests that had essentially been stonewalled and ignored by the previous administration. The information had to do with the fatalities and near fatalities of children in West Virginia's child welfare system. There was no excuse, let me repeat, there was no excuse to keep this information shielded from the public. No excuse. We're going to be different. We're going to be upfront with the people of West Virginia, and we're going to be as transparent as the law possibly allows. So today, we're releasing the response to that FOIA and all that the law allows to those outlets who requested it, and we'll be taking additional steps to promote transparency going forward. We'll start with number 1 step of the many that we're announcing today. After conducting an internal review of circumstances of 6 fatalities or near fatalities that occurred between 2021 and 2024, the Department of Human Services will be implementing a new transparency policy that interprets the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act differently than the previous administration. You're not going to have to chase people down the hall. Applicable state law, federal law, and federal policy make it clear that certain information must be disclosed in case of child fatalities or near fatalities resulting from abuse or neglect. This information includes the cause and circumstances surrounding the fatality or near fatality, the age and sex of the child, information describing previous reports or investigations that are pertinent to the abuse or neglect that led to the fatality, the results of any pertinent investigations, and services provided by and actions of the state on behalf of the child that are pertinent to the abuse or neglect that led to the fatality or near fatality. Previously, this was not followed. Going forward, the department will be complying with these disclosure requirements, and we're working to promote transparency and accountability in the work of child welfare. It's critical for the kids of our state. Second, we're announcing today we've overhauled the child welfare dashboard to include interactive features to allow stakeholders, policymakers, and the public to more easily access child welfare data. The public deserves that. Data is clear, and information on key performance indicators, service outcomes, and workforce metrics can be more easily found. The new dashboard is going to allow for a deeper review and analysis, and it's going to include month-over-month and year-over-year trends to help us identify and fix any specific areas of concern. 3, the Department of Human Services has also implemented changes to the way supervisors review cases and how they receive training. Child welfare supervisors will now be required to conduct monthly reviews of their cases. The supervisors will work with members from our state office team and identify what is being done well, where there are opportunities for improvement, and corrective action. In March of 2025, the Department of Human Services launched an agency-wide leadership education and development initiative to strengthen supervisory effectiveness. The program includes all existing supervisors, that's 577 of them, who are required to complete a rigorous mandatory training curriculum. We're going to have improved communications, we're going to have improved training going forward. That's central to the functionality of any governmental program. Enrollment in that training began on a staggered basis starting March 17th, 2025, and all participants are expected to complete this training by the end of this month, early next month. Moving forward, every newly appointed supervisor will be enrolled on their first workday and must complete all courses within the first week. We're fixing some of the management structure that had pervaded this program in the past. Step 4, we're also operating differently due to some of the new statutory changes in HB 2880, which I was proud to sign into law. The most significant impact of that legislation is the creation of a critical incident review team. That team is composed of several Department of Human Services staff, as well as representatives of the Foster Care Ombudsman, the Supreme Court of Appeals, the Prosecutors Institute, House of Delegates, senators, and state police. The members of this team, they're going to conduct a deeper dive in every critical incident to determine if there was anything that could be done differently that might have prevented the incident in question from actually occurring. That's important. I commend the legislature for that move this year. 5, West Virginia in the very near future will be implementing a comprehensive practice model. This is something that's designed to provide our team with better guidance, better policy, and assess performance at the state and the local level. We've seen similar practice models adopted with success in Illinois, Nebraska, and also South Dakota. This is going to include changes to things such as intake, investigation, and services, and ultimately it helps shape the decisions of the staff and the leadership involved. And finally, 6, we're implementing a new intake process which will involve caseworkers potentially making additional contacts before a referral is screened in or screened out. We need that extra input to make sure that the information is done correctly. At least it's improved in terms of the referral sources. What this means is that employees will now be able to gather information from relevant individuals involved in the case rather than simply rely on exactly what's in the referral. I think that's going to give people the flexibility they need to get to better decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, there are very serious issues with the foster care situation in West Virginia. And many of these were handled very poorly in the past. And this is a very difficult area, not casting aspersions on any one person or any one group. These are tough issues that our state faces. But these are issues that have to get fixed. They're not going to get fixed overnight. These are difficult, they're complex issues. But what I can promise you today is that we want to be honest, we want to be transparent, and we will be accountable for what happens. So to recap, here's what we're implementing. There are a number of changes to address the issues within the foster care system. One, providing increased transparency and disclosing additional information about child fatalities and near fatalities. This is a major change from the failures of the past. Two, we're overhauling the child welfare dashboard to make it easier to use and easier to interpret the data. That's important. That's going to be live this afternoon. You can look at it, and also access to the FOIA responses. That's all going to be available for you this afternoon as well, so you can take a look at it. Three, we're requiring supervisors to conduct monthly reviews with their child welfare cases and work with our state office team to identify better opportunities for improvement and better ways we can train our supervisors. That's critical. Four, we're creating our critical incident review team to conduct a deeper dive into all the issues that occur and think through how we can make things better into the future. Five, we're introducing a comprehensive practice model to provide a foundational framework that can be standardized across the state. And six, we're going to allow caseworkers to gather more comprehensive information on cases, so it's not just relying solely on the referral, it's going to rely on some of the third-party information as well that I think could be critical. To be clear, there's a lot more work that has to be done, and I want to say I'm thankful for our team today and to Secretary Alex Mayer. I'm sorry that he couldn't be here today to roll out some of these changes, but I will say I have the utmost confidence in him and the team that we're putting together to start initiating those, to begin moving the needle when it comes to foster care. You know, coming into this office, I knew that there would be significant challenges ahead. As we dig into the reports and the feedback from the listening tour, I'm sure we're going to have some additional announcements in the weeks, months, and years ahead. But at the end of the day, we need to look out for the kids, we need to look out for the families, and we need to make sure we're putting the best interest of those West Virginia's kids and families first. That's what we're beginning to do today, and I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have. Stephen.
Yes, Governor. How did you come to some of this? There's obviously been a lot of talk. You've got some people in the legislature, Delegates Pinson and Burkhammer, Senator Deeds, I think, had a couple of bills floating out there. They didn't make it over the finish line, but I know that they've been taking the lead on this, amongst others in the legislature. There's certainly been good reporting on this over the years. So I guess, how did you come to some of these discussions? And also, I mean, you've had a chance now the last few months. You've talked about how bad the system is. I mean, what is your reaction to some of the things that you've now heard and seen?
Well, you know, Stephen, I can tell you I learned a lot from the listening session, just listening to people that are on the front lines trying to grapple with what's going on. You know, I've talked to a number of the legislators that really care a lot about making the system better. And I think that, as we talked about today, one of the pieces we're incorporating in today, the critical incident review team, came out of the work product from the legislature. And Adam Burkhammer and a number of other people had been very involved in it. So I can say this. I know that our secretary, I know that our commissioner, they've been meeting and talking with everyone. One of the interesting things that I noticed, Stephen, when I came in, is that right away, it seemed like our entire team from day one had to go visit the courts. They had to go visit the legislature. You know, it's pretty hard when you're doing that every day to actually be thoughtful about what you're going to do to fix the problem, because all you're doing is dealing with all the systemic problems from the past. The good news is that now we've had a little bit of time. post-legislative session, we were able to take all the information that we accumulated from talking with the legislature, from doing these listening sessions, from meeting with the judges, the courts, and others, and by spending a little time to being thoughtful. And we were also able to begin to more thoughtfully review some of the communications that were happening and, quite frankly, were not happening. And that's part of the reason why we have the transparency policy today. Look, I was down the hall last summer when a lot of that was happening. That's embarrassing, right? We can't have that kind of stuff. People need to follow the law. People need to take the right steps to be transparent. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that when we can't reveal information, we have to keep that tight. And in fact, today, we can go through the circumstances by which paper can be provided under the law and when it can't. But the public deserves information. And so a lot of this is what we've been observing over the last few years. But I certainly compliment the legislature for the good work that they've done, the department for the work they've done, the listening sessions, and the feedback we've been getting across the board. I also want to emphasize this is just the beginning. This is not a comprehensive solution. This is a down payment, a first step. There's a lot more work that has to be done, I think, building on what we're learning from the listening sessions. But I think a lot of people care a lot about this problem, and there's been a lot of talk about it. There's been a lot of reporting about it. We need more change, and we need to look out for the best interest of the kids, and that's what we're trying to do. Next question. Where's Amelia when you need her? She's missing today. She's on vacation? How can she miss vacation? Have vacation on this. This is an issue she cares a lot about. Go ahead, my friend.
So obviously there's a lot of legislature past legislative session, but I was wondering if there was anything you were going to target the upcoming special session that has to deal with some of the foster care issues that we've been seeing.
Obviously, we're going to keep looking at these, and we're going to keep working on it. I will tell you, my theory on special sessions is what you try to do is you make sure that you're really organized and you're ready so that when you press the button and you call a special session, that you're ready to roll. I think that's important. And I've had conversations with the leadership of the legislature about that. So certainly when there are things that are ready for special session, we're not afraid to put it on the call. But we're busy working right now. I think I've mentioned that we're doing a deep dive on PEIA right now, and we're analyzing that. And obviously, when we get to the right point, we'll update people on the dates. And if there are other initiatives that we're going to roll out, we'll most certainly tell the public about that. But right now, we're doing a lot of focus on PEIA for the special session. And there may be some other pieces as well. But, you know, we're not looking at that over the course of the next few weeks. That's going to take a little bit more time. Stephen.
Speaking of health, I know you're probably be limited in what you can say, but the ACLU and Mountain State Justice filed their lawsuit last week against your executive order on allowing for religious and philosophical exceptions to vaccines. I didn't know if you had any reaction or anything you could say in regards to that.
Look, I think that there's been a mischaracterization of the position. The executive order interprets the law that was passed by the legislature, so it's interpreting both of the laws together. You can't just ignore the law. As I think everyone knows, I could tell the public that the religious freedom law was given no meaning in the past, right? You had a religious freedom law that was sitting out there. It was isolated. It was never applied. That's wrong. That's not how the legal process works. When you pass something, you have to give it meaning. It's a law. Well, no meaning was given to it. We looked at that very carefully, and we saw that when you applied the provisions of that law on top of the vaccination policy, this was the natural result that came up. So we feel really good that the two laws, when you analyze them on top of each other, that this is a strong interpretation and designed to be upheld in the courts. And so obviously, there are a lot of people that want to mischaracterize it and say we're trying to overrule a law. That's not true. And so they're doing that intentionally because their arguments are weak. We know that we're interpreting the religious freedom law to make sure that it's acting consistent with the immunization law. I think that's important. The other piece I would mention is that not one person has pointed out any public health issues that arise. We're an outlier in West Virginia, one of only a few states that doesn't even have a statutory religious exemption. That's wrong to be one of only 5 states in a particular category when no one's been able to point out any problematic healthcare issues that arose in all those other states. I think the public needs to understand that they've been, victimized by a sham campaign trying to scare them up, and we're trying to do very reasonable policy that fits with virtually every state in the country. West Virginia should not be an outlier. Go ahead. And what's your name, ma'am? Okay, thank you.
And with the release of this information, there may be an influx of criticism towards the foster care facilities in our state. And I'm just wondering if you have any recommendations or foresee how these concerns may be addressed in the future.
Well, I think we're going to take it one step at a time. Today, we talked a little bit about first the communications that existed in the past in terms of the transparency to the public. I think when you're transparent to the public, it helps, because I'm not here to proclaim we have all the answers to all the problems. That's not what we're here about, and it's a very difficult issue. And so therefore, we're not pointing our fingers and say, aha, you didn't do X, Y, and Z. This isn't low-hanging fruit. This takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. We've already been putting more time and work in it than any administration ever has, because it matters for the kids. So what we're doing today is we're taking first steps in terms of different ways we can improve communications, training, coordination, intake, and decision-making. And so I think it's a solid first step, but there's a lot more work that needs to be done. I know that I've had discussions and meetings about what happens with our foster care system. We have a lot of people that are out of state. We pay a lot of money for that. And I want to look for different ways to address that over time. There are problematic situations, but I will say that we're working, and this is not the past, and we're working every day to fix the problem. So I tell everyone, don't waste your time on litigation. Come and work with us on policy solutions, because we're making the changes that are necessary to look out for the best interest of kids. Any other questions that people may have? Sure, go ahead.
I also have a question regarding the layoffs at Green Power, and we're just wondering what your steps for your administration might look like to save those lost jobs.
Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we're always working very hard to address some of the people that lose their jobs, because we know we have a lot of outstanding jobs. We can put people to work right away. We know that there have been some problems with that company, and we're right now, when we saw that happening, I've asked my team to look at the background, because as you know, they receive state benefits. And so we're looking to try to get out in front and address, the nature of that status. We'll probably be able to report that, as early as this afternoon or tomorrow, because that's important. That was front page yesterday. And so we're trying to get to the bottom of that. But we want to help the people find the great opportunities. There are a lot of job opportunities available in West Virginia, and we want to make sure that the people that work hard have those good economic benefits into the future. Hey.
Since it's been on the radio the last 2 days, certificate of need repeal. Former Senate President Craig Blair had an op-ed basically arguing that while there are benefits to it, the state may not be ready for it quite yet. You had a representative of the Cardinal Institute on Metro News today specifically making the case on the opposite side. The state is very much ready to have a certificate of need repeal. Obviously, I imagine that's still something that is a goal of this administration, and something you're probably working towards. So are you working on any type of plan or trying to court legislators between now and the next legislative session to try to bring people on board, kind of use the, not using the carrot so much, not using the stick, but using the carrot?
Well, thank you for noticing that we've been mostly using the carrot. That's important. But look, I will say this, that we're going to have some announcements probably within the next few weeks. There are a lot of different ways that we can make the healthcare environment in West Virginia more competitive, and we're eager to do that. And obviously, you'd like to get a law in place. That's the long-term arc of it. I do think that the majority of the legislature, if given an opportunity, would want to see advancements in those areas. I know that different parts of the state are kind of crying out for more competition, and so I hear that, I see that. So we're going to continue to look at that, and I think people who know me know that I try to look long-term. I don't put ideas out there that I don't intend to follow through on. I think people know that, and we certainly know the value of competition, and we want to make sure that we're improving healthcare quality and outcomes in the state. That's really my focus. I want to lift up the quality and the outcomes. That's what matters most for me. And so we're working on different ways to do that. I think more competition can lead to that fact. But as we have more information, I'd be happy to share that with you going forward. Any other questions that folks may have?
This overhaul of how supervisors are trained within the foster care system was implemented March 27th, and we're coming up on the deadline for them to be completed. What kind of feedback have you heard from people who have gone through that process?
I think it's been positive. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
It has been. I think everybody's appreciated the support that they're getting from the training.
Laura's been doing a great job. I mean, she is passionate about these programs, so we're grateful with your work and with Alex's work. One final question.
Do you have any insight into what those trainings look like?
Those trainings are like documentation, accountability, employee engagement. So it's around leadership versus management.
We probably have some slide deck or something.
Yes, I can get that.
Yeah, why don't we put something together? I don't know. We'll get it to you as soon as we can, but we're happy to share that with you. Good. Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. We have more announcements coming soon. I appreciate all the good work that folks are doing, and now we move to the next step. Thank you.